Welcome back. I'd like to call the Committee of the Whole meeting for July 20th, 2026 to order. Deputy Village Clerk Arnold, please call the roll.
Mayor Mullen?
Here.
Trustee Duffy is absent. Trustee Grau?
Here.
Trustee McGovern is absent. Trustee McQuillan?
Here.
Trustee Olson?
Here.
Trustee Sima?
Here.
That'll bring us to public comment for Committee of the Whole. If anyone wishes to provide public comment, there's up to 5 minutes per person. Please come on up and just state your name for the record.
Susan Sorrell. First of all, again, there was a water main leak, I believe. Somebody had told me on Burr Oak and Maple on the Four Lakes side. I believe it's an Illinois American line. I don't think it was a Lisle line. Still bubbling up water this afternoon. That was yesterday, probably 24 hours ago that it was reported, just so everybody understands. We pay for quality service, but we don't seem to get it. Also, I would like to thank the Public Works Department for, I believe they did trim the trees on Westview and Maple Avenue. They were really bad. You could not see down Maple Avenue either way. I would also like to ask the police department if they could pay more attention to that, because that's been an ongoing issue for probably a year. And some of the residents from Oakview had contacted me about it, stating that when they called about it, they were told that we were county, but we're not county, we are village residents. So just so that doesn't happen again. And I think that's about it for right now. I'll be back for Agenda A. Thanks.
Thanks. Anyone else for general public comment? All right, that'll bring us to the regular agenda for Committee of the Whole. First up is a discussion of potential professional advisory services. Village Manager Kurt. Hi. I don't know what's wrong with my head. Village Manager Cook, would you please present this item?
Certainly, Mayor. This item is before the board this evening for discussion. It's the next in the series of efforts to find ways to address the presence of the private utility system serving some Lisle residents. If we go back to the March 2nd Committee of the Whole meeting, the board had expressed interest in exploring valuation of potentially acquiring the private system. Following that meeting, staff began an effort to obtain that kind of input for the board and quickly identified the complexities surrounding the concept of valuation. That was rolled into a request for qualifications that was published seeking professional guidance on the subject matter. It was held out for about a month to get interest. We did get significant exposure to the RFQ. However, only one firm had submitted qualifications for this unique type of project. There was a handful in the local area that certainly would be capable, but they either didn't have certain expertise or they had conflicts of interest, and they declined to participate. The one that did respond is Hanson Professional Services Incorporated. They're a full-service consulting firm based in Springfield, Illinois, and they have offices in 10 states and Canada. One of their Illinois locations is right here in Lisle. Hanson would assign a group of their senior personnel, highly experienced in the areas of public administration, engineering, utilities, and law, to coordinate their expert input with the village's attorney so that they could use that to further assist the board in considering potential future action. Outlined in the agenda item packet today is a summary of the scope of services that would be provided, which at a high level contemplate developing a structured framework from which regulatory and legal matters, financial considerations, and timelines could be combined to facilitate and support the board's consideration. Hanson indicates the scope of services contemplated could be provided for a fee of $56,865. The completion schedule does hinge on funding and actual contract timing, but once started, they do expect it to take a number of months to work through that evaluation. Funds to support these services are included in the fiscal year 26-27 budget. The purpose of tonight's discussion is to consider if the board is open to and desires to fund this type of expert review, which would assist the village attorney in providing ongoing advice to the board going forward. If the board wishes to proceed, Next steps will involve Hanson working with the village attorney to finalize the scope of services, contract language, and followed by a resolution presented to the board for passage to approve the expenditures. So that concludes my discussion on this point, and I turn it back over to the board for discussion, and happy to try to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any public comment? I know there is on this item.
Susan Sorrell. I think we probably all know who I am. Tonight, you're being asked to spend nearly $57,000 to hire outside consultants to evaluate water and sewer utility service options for our community. First, I want to say this. I support getting qualified experts involved. For nearly 2 decades, Oakview residents have been asking questions that have never received complete answers. If this consultant can finally provide these answers, then this could be one of the most important decisions this board has ever made regarding our neighborhood. But only if the consultant is allowed to ask the right questions. Tonight, I want to make sure this does not become a $56,865 report that simply tells us what we already know. Because the biggest question facing Oakview has never been answered, which is who actually owns the system. Not who operates it, not who sends us the bills, not who actually owns the but who actually owns the infrastructure is what we want to know. For years, residents have searched DuPage County records looking for deeds, easements, or recorded conveniences and titles. We've reviewed historical court decisions, we reviewed subdivision documents, we reviewed decades of village records, which you'll see on my pages that I gave the ICC. Yet the fundamental question remains unanswered. If the village is hiring legal experts, engineers, and land acquisition specialists, then ownership should be one of the very first issues they are directed to investigate, not avoid. Not assume, investigate. The agenda also says the consultant will conduct a legal and regulatory review. Excellent. Then I respectfully ask this board to ensure that the review includes the historical legal documents surrounding Oakview, including the Illinois Supreme Court ruling and litigation involving in this subdivision. The original development documents and any evidence supporting how ownership of the infrastructure was transferred over the last several decades. If ownership cannot be documented, that does matter. If easement cannot be documented, that matters.
We have the same thing right now.
I have the same thing going on tonight. If there are gaps in the historical record, that matters, because every future decision depends on understanding the legal foundation first. The proposed scope also includes evaluating alternatives. Again, that's encouraging. But alternatives should include very realistic options, not just the easiest option. Can Oakview be served directly by the village? Could infrastructure be acquired? Could new agreements be negotiated? Could existing agreements be modified? Those questions deserve objective answers backed by facts, engineering, not law, not assumptions. I also ask the process to be transparent. Oakview residents have spent many years researching the issue. Many have gathered documents, attended meetings, submitted FOIA requests, reviewed historical records, and worked with state agencies. Please allow these residents to provide information directly to the consultant. Don't limit the consultant to hearing only one side of the story. If this is truly an independent review, then the consultant should receive all excluding residents does the opposite. I'm really tongue-tied today. Finally, I ask the board to remember why we are here. This is not just about the pipes, it's not just about engineering, it's not just about utility service, it's about trust. Residents deserve confidence in the decisions affecting their homes are based on documents, facts, not assumptions, carried forward year after year. Tonight, you have the opportunity to reset the process. Give this consultant a clear mission. Follow the evidence where it leads. Ask the difficult questions. Require documented answers. And make every finding available to the public. If we're going to invest public money in this study, let's make sure the result is something every resident can have confidence in. Not just because it supports one position or another, but because it follows the facts. Oakview residents have waited a long time for this opportunity. Please don't let this become another missed one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else for public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll turn to board discussion. Who wants to kick us off?
I will. So, yeah, we've had a lot of conversations about this over the last year. We've done a lot of fact-finding, gathering information, getting resident input. To me, this is the first proactive step forward and what our realistic options are. So I am in support of hiring them, and the suggestion that it include a final answer, a definitive answer on who owns the infrastructure, I would like a final answer on that myself, so I have no objection to that being included as part of the response that we get from them.
As definitive as it can be without it being litigated.
Well, right,
Just
to the
making
extent we
that-
can, right.
Yes, but what we
Yeah.
know to be.
Correct.
Yeah. Further, go ahead.
Yeah, I absolutely support hiring this consultant to try to drive this thing forward. It's been talked about, and we've, been looking at it for a while now, but this sounds like it's a good first step to really start moving ahead and making some sort of steps toward a resolution, I think. And I will agree with Ms. Rail's comment and request, I guess, that residents of Oakview be included at some point in discussions with the consultants to provide their information that they have and also their input and opinions on things, so.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also in support. I think it is a good first step. Same, I would like to know if we can, who owns the pipes. That would be really good to know. But yeah, I support.
Yeah, I'm certainly in support. I think to the village attorney's, I guess, point, probably the ultimate resolution is likely litigation, but this is a step in the process of trying to ultimately determine our own experts' opinion on ownership, but also for me, this is outlining what the likely costs are as well as potential valuation. I guess to that, this is early in the process, but most likely evaluation. It's like anything that comes up in a disagreement, the other side's going to have a valuation as well. So, but this is a step that would be necessary. I'm not saying that is also necessarily the direction that it takes, but without starting this part of the process, this board or future board can't really make that determination. So it's certainly, it's good that we were able to find a consultant, since it sounds like it was a difficult process to find somebody that either wasn't conflicted out, I have some suspicions on conflicts out, or didn't have maybe all the necessary qualified individuals on their staff. So good that we were able to find somebody. The cost is kind of the cost, because when you only have one, so we have to pay. So, but I'm in support. Thank you.
Great. So I think we do have consensus. Go ahead, Manager Jeff. Manager Jeff. I'm just going to sit over here for a while.
Just a couple comments. Certainly, listening to the discussion here this evening, I think there's some good points being made. Right now, in talking with the consultants, I don't think that their scope where they put that price tag included that level of community outreach, as well as that level of a deep dive on the legal ownership side. So we can certainly talk with them about expanding the scope that way. I don't know how many hours and what personnel that would involve, but I would anticipate that would increase the value. We do have, again, some budgeted funds this year, so we'll see what we can do to incorporate some of that with the discussion while respecting some of the boundaries that we're trying to create with the village attorney, so on and so forth. So if that's acceptable to the board, that we come back with some negotiated price that will be certainly higher than what we've discussed this evening, we'll proceed in that fashion.
I see nodding all around, and I totally agree that those are important aspects to be included in the scope, so we'll get those in there. And anything else you need from us, Manager Cook, on this one? You good?
That's adequate, I think. Thank you,
Okay,
Mayor.
Perfect. That'll move us to item B, discussion of the village's tuition reimbursement program. Whoever stole, tied both of our tongues, Ms. Rail, we'll have to have a talk with them. Villager Manager Cook, would you please present this item as well?
Certainly, Mayor. This item is presented to discuss the inclusion of a tuition reimbursement program in the village's general employee handbook. Presently, such a program is provided to 44 of the 96 authorized positions in the village through union contracts. The program was previously offered to non-bargaining employees through the employee handbook, but presently is not included. Earlier this year, the fiscal year 26-27 budget did include funding to restore the program for non-bargaining staff as part of our broader recruitment and retention efforts. With the board's support, staff would prepare an amendment to the employee handbook to restore a tuition reimbursement program generally consistent with the program provided through the village's collective bargaining agreements. However, as part of the effort, staff's goal would be to create even access to the non-bargaining program while also providing for guidelines like typical things like pre-approval of coursework, successful completion of the coursework, commitment to village employment following that coursework. And then if instituted, the board would, of course, retain authority each year to set the funding levels for the program through the annual budget process. So tonight, staff is just requesting the board's input on proceeding with the preparation of an amendment to the handbook to include that program for non-bargaining staff positions. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, board discussion.
I'm happy to kick it off again, so I don't like to treat different categories of employees different, so this equalizes and treats both categories equally. I think that's fair. I think we've seen some staffing turnover. If this helps keep us competitive with so we don't lose people to other villages, I think it makes sense. And having our staff have better education and training is always a positive, so I'm in support.
Excellent, thank you. Trustee Graham?
Yeah, I just have a question about, a couple things. The coursework, I don't know how it's done now with the people that already get the tuition reimbursement. Does it have to directly align with their current position? Or, could they go back to school to become a teacher, and then leave the village of Lisle? Like, how does that work?
Traditionally, in most of these programs, there has to be some alignment to, village initiatives. It can be with the person's current position, or it could be to a position to which they might aspire that would have value for the village. Helping them become a nuclear engineer might not be something the village would be interested in funding. I'm trying to pick up this excerpt of the contract and see if I could see what it actually reads in here. I'm not seeing it real quickly, but certainly the idea would be whatever we bring to the board would include some limitations that it would have to be geared toward the person's job and have some value to the village if the village is going to participate in funding that tuition.
Okay, and then secondly, I don't know, again, how is it currently? Is there an expectation of so many years after the completion of this new degree or certification that they would stay within Lisle?
Yeah, I'm not certain if the existing program or the previous one that was removed had that, but it is not uncommon to have that. You'll typically see a couple years after it's been earned. We'd take a look at that as part of the drafting to make sure that we're not too onerous and not too low either on getting that commitment.
Okay, great. No, I definitely support it. I think education's a great thing, and it should be fair for everybody that works within the village as well. So that's all I have.
Okay.
I guess me. I'm generally supportive. I think the only thing I'd note, and for similar reasons, to have the programs, or I guess all employees kind of covered with the same level of benefit. To the point, I guess, on Trustee Grau's kind of question on, I guess, I don't know how to phrase it, if it's time frame, commitment back. This is going back a ways early in my career. I know sometimes it was a challenge on the tuition reimbursement of practically enforcing kind of the clawbacks. I'm not saying it's not something to look into and to pursue, and particularly if it is common within municipal government tuition reimbursement programs that is not having any sort of competitive disadvantage. The only thing I would say is, for me, I know that it was not that I never actually took advantage of any of them, but I just know from the HR standpoint, it was difficult trying to get those clawbacks. And most of the time, while it was there in policy, in practicality, the employees left. And most of the time, companies at least, I can't say municipal governments who are managing budgets of public dollars, in the private sector, most of the time, it wasn't worth pursuing. But valid point, just wanted to, I guess, point that out if staff is kind of investigating that. So that's it. Thank you.
And Trustee McQuillan?
Yeah, so I absolutely support the tuition assistance slash reimbursement program, whichever way you want to put the money forward for employees. I think one of the things that we're seeing with the recent losses of some of our staff here in Lisle is that I guess village management is a competitive field. And so this is going to be a benefit that I think will help us retain employees and attract employees as well. And so I think it's very worth doing. And from the assistance versus reimbursement standpoint, because a lot of the employees that might look to take advantage of this would be younger in age, I think, and earlier in their careers that are trying to get credentials and certifications and things like that for promotions and things like that, then I think that they probably would need it more on the assistance side than on the reimbursement side. But in either case, I think it would be a benefit that would be valuable to attract and to retain employees in the village.
Great, thank you. Obviously, I'm in support also. We've talked about this before, so I think you have consensus from all of us to move forward with it.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right. That'll bring us to the phase of officials and staff reports. Anything pop into your head in the last 10 minutes, guys? Okay. Any further village staff reports, Mr. Cook?
Nothing further.
All right, that'll move us into executive session. So in addition to the closed session items identified on the agenda tonight, I'd like to ask for a motion that includes one additional closed session purpose, which is to discuss the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the village. So may I have a motion to recess into closed session for the purposes of reviewing closed session meeting minutes, the semi-annual review of closed session meeting minutes and collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, and the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the village.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and second. Deputy Clerk, please call roll.
Trustee Sima?
Aye.
Trustee Grau?
Aye.
Trustee McGovern?
Aye.
It's Trustee McQuillan, excuse me. And Trustee Olson?
Aye.
All right, with that, we're going to adjourn into executive session. No action other than reconvening and adjourning committee of the whole will occur following the executive session. Motion to reconvene open session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Deputy Clerk Arnold, please call roll.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Grau?
Aye.
Trustee Olson?
Aye.
Trustee McQuillan?
Aye.
We're reconvened, and now may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Deputy Clerk Arnold, please call the roll.
Trustee Olson?
Aye.
Trustee Grau?
Aye.
Trustee McQuillan?
Aye.
Trustee Olson?
Aye.
With that, we're adjourned. Thank you very much.